And the company was formed a couple of years ago. And what we decided to do at the time when we were launching the product was to actually try a test area out, which was actually in the farming area, which was rangeland cattle, which I'll cover a bit later. So the general problem we're trying to solve, if you like, is that most of the current applications in the marketplace, which are in the geographic information systems area, are very much display orientated. They're really about maps. And that's what you generally see. What we're trying to do is actually make those maps much more intelligent. So we're actually using data and turning that data into information. And we're doing it in a number of ways. We're doing it through intelligence in the lines, and we're also doing it intelligence through the pixels. So every single pixel on the screen, we actually have intelligence locked into, so that when we actually merge data together, we can actually merge data at a pixel-based level. And that makes it very intelligent. When we get into the IoT, the Internet of Things, we're going to get a doubling of data basically every 12 hours. And as a result of every 12 hours of doubling, will mean we end up with an awful lot of data out there, most of which is unrelated to each other. We bring in that intelligence, we bring in the ability to turn that data into 4D data, which is actually in time as well as X, Y, and Z. And that's really where our product name of FarmMap 4D actually comes from. So when we get this data coming through, that provides us with the ability to enter information. The process of turning into information means that we've got the ability to do actionable type activities, which in the case of farming areas, we can actually predict how many cattle are needed on a farm for the biomass on that farm. Or we can actually work out longer term whether in fact it's cheaper to sell your cows now, or better to sell your cows now than it will be in, say, 3 months' time, if there's going to be likely to be a drought or whatever. So Spatial Hub Analytics accelerates decisions being made in the property area by turning data into information. So we turn to the slide. Our basic way we operate, although it's not really come out too well, but the idea being is that we're all based around this 4D hub. And around that 4D hub, we have this derived data core. The derived data core basically is how we actually analyze all the data which comes in. And that comes in from various data sources and some analytics. And we put it all together, we derive the data ourselves. So that information we actually own, and most of it is being corrected and being preserved in some way. We then have a store, which allows us to actually operate our system to a large client base. So if you want to go to the next slide, I think that probably explains a bit better. So in terms of getting data in, we tend to use satellite, we can use drone, we can use aerial data, IoT data. We have a plethora of data coming through from various research agencies and also other available data sources, such as satellite information. And we actually use, I think, 3 different types. We use Sentinel Hub, and we use Landsat data in particular, and there's a few other private systems we also can use, which I can't go into detail about. In terms of how we actually then operate, I think the best thing to do is go to the next slide, which shows that here we actually make up a number of layers, and each of the layers we actually can access, and by accessing those layers we can then make it into FarmMap, or in this case we can make it into Property Scope, which is one of the other products, or we can build a new product. And because most of our information, most of our layers, private and public, and the applications we've developed, which are AI applications, are all reusable, it means we can actually build a new application very, very quickly. 80% of our technology is replicable, and we can use it in a number of different areas. So hence the reason why we did FarmMap initially, just to test it in the marketplace. And we now have, this year, we're expecting $500,000 worth of sales through subscriptions. We're about to launch Property Scope in the next few weeks, and that we're hoping will build very quickly. And we have a series of other products in the pipeline, including carbon management, which will be very important. Drought management's another one, fire, for bushfire analysis. We've got another one looking at that area as well, plus a series of other products which will go into other markets, particularly in the area of mining and sustainability. So I think next slide, I think, is actually this one. So I think this basically summarizes where we are. I think the important thing to understand is that even though FarmMap 4D was meant to be just effectively a test product, it's become quite successful. And we've actually got over 800 properties in our database today. We cover around about 1.5 million of heads of livestock, and it's going, in fact, quite well. One of the accolades, if you like, has come from one of the farmers who holds currently 14,000 head of cattle. And I think he says it all there, that he finds the use of FarmMap very useful for what he's trying to do. And he said he doesn't know what he would do without it. So it's a very useful tool. But that's just the foundation. And really, I think it's now the case of you, Guy, talking about the property product, isn't it? I think. Oh no, I've got this one first. I had forgotten that one. Yeah, so this is where we are. Today we've got Spatial Hub is the main engine of what we're doing. FarmMap 4D is our major premium product, which is working in the rangeland cattle area. We've just released a product called FarmMap 4D Lite, which actually just looks at low-cost mapping and data analytics. That later on will become a dashboard-based product and will actually be applicable to all farmers, not just in rangeland cattle. And the other one, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is Property Scope, which is actually a comprehensive data analytics system for the urban real estate sector, which Guy will now speak about. Thank you.
Oops. Yeah, so welcome and good to talk about Property Scope. So Property Scope, and you can see here our brand new branding for the product, which is being deployed into the development environment as we speak. But it came out of discussions with Peter McDougall, who's on the line and is a commercial partner in the project as well as a shareholder. And we identified a number of things, but the property market, as we all know, is very hot. There's a real risk of missing out on a product unless you move property if you can't move quickly. But quick decisions quite often means you make the wrong decisions. And talking to Peter as a property developer, it became apparent that one of the big problems for property developers is even a basic assessment of a property today across multiple platforms and sources of information can take somewhere between 5 to 6 hours. What we have done is aggregate that data for them, and we can do it in about 5 minutes. If I take a town planner today, somebody comes in and says, what can I do with a property? Typically, they will charge you between $500 to $1,000, and it can take them up to 5 days to give you a report. For our retail users, this is just general mums and dads and other people, real estate agents looking at a property. We can give them a report, a detailed report on a property for under $50 in about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how long it takes to extract information out of council databases, etc. The whole idea of Property Scope is you can stand in front of a property, you can look at it, we can geolocate where you are, you can confirm it by typing in an address, and on your mobile phone very quickly, it will throw up some basic information about that property. You can choose to purchase what's known as a basic report, which is essentially a summary of all the key facts and figures of the property and what you're allowed to do with it or not. Or you can buy an advanced report, which has multiple additional elements of data. So this is what roughly it would look like on a mobile phone. This is being developed as we speak. It's in functional testing, and we expect to go to beta launch in early December. So essentially, you would be standing in front of a property, and you could start typing in the address at the top of your mobile phone. Just slip that one, and I'll come to the next one. Next slide. What will happen then is, as you start typing in the address, we will automatically give you options for the address, and most of the time we'll find the address very quickly. Occasionally we won't find the address because the incorrect spelling or typing is being put in, and we will prompt you to try again. Initially, we're going to launch covering about 68% of all property transactions in Queensland. That will rapidly go up to 84% within a month. And then in due course, we're going to go into New South Wales and Victoria in the first half of 2022. Next. Keep going. So as we find an address, first of all, we'll give you a teaser. There's a picture of your property with the outline picture of the property and the area. Now on Google Earth, you could obviously do an aerial view of a property. The problem is it won't show you the boundary areas and it won't show you the actual area of the property. And that could be hidden by vegetation, as is the case here. So we allow somebody to see the size dimension of a property straight away. That's the teaser. We then encourage you to log in if you're already registered with us or to create an account. Once you've created an account, you'll be confronted by what's called a skeleton loader, this middle picture. We start loading the data from multiple sources into a report, which you can see on your mobile phone. And on the right, you'll see the report appearing with a picture of the property and various attributes. This is what's known as the basic report. We can also then, if someone wants more detailed information, we can arrange to send them an advanced report. Now, the advanced report is actually sent by email. And the reason it's sent by email rather than going straight onto the mobile phone is we have to collect a lot of data from a lot of third-party sources. So the timing of that data being presented to us can be variable. But in most instances, the report would come on someone's email address and they would be able to view it on their mobile phone within a matter of minutes rather than an extended period. Obviously, because it's gone to your email, you can then view it on your desktop when you get home. Keep going. The product will allow you to store all your reports, all your searches. It'll allow you to view what you've seen previously. And at the moment, the product is what's called a static product. It looks at a single property. Within the early part of next year, we'll be doing a premium product, which allows you to search multiple properties. And what that means is, if I'm in front of a property and I'm looking at it, and the planning assessment of it comes up on the report saying it's not suitable for what I'm trying to do, I would be able to go into the application and say, please find me properties, similar dimensions within 5 kilometers of this property, which will allow me to do X. And that premium product, or as we call it, interactive mapping, will produce a series of options. Now, we've got the base development that's been completed. The detailed development of that will be done during the first quarter of next year. The key dates is for the property products as we stand is we've got functional testing nearly completed. We're joining up all the bits in the background like pricing, sales, CRM, payment portal, all that stuff. The detailed user experience testing will be completed in early December. We're then planning a beta launch around the middle of December. That might come a little bit quicker. You might say, why launch just before Christmas? Well, a lot of people are looking at property over the Christmas holidays, and we think it's a good idea to get out there and start getting some traction with people looking at property during the holiday period. That will allow us to refine, enhance any glitches or improvements we see are necessary, and we'll go to a full commercial launch in January. With the premium product I've talked about coming in March, and we'll be looking to launch that around May, potentially June. What I'd like to suggest at this time, if possible, is we just ask Peter McDougall to come in. Peter is the managing director and co-founder of Stateland PDY. He's been a great advocate of the product. He is a typical property developer in the market who faces the significant problem of assessing multiple properties quickly and the time and cost it takes to do so. Peter, are you able to say a quick few words about your...
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep, okay. Thanks, Guy, for the introduction. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity. As Guy mentioned, we're a property development company. We've been going for 27 years. Traditionally, we're based in Cairns, but we work North Queensland and we pop into Southeast Queensland, do projects. I think one of our attributes and why we've been still here is we're conservative, but we're also very analytical. And we were looking to diversify our investment portfolio, but property's always been in our blood. And besides that, I've got a farm. And so we stumbled across the farm map and it got our attention. Back in those days, it was called Farm Map. Right? And so I like to draw a comparison the way I see Farm Map or now Spatial Hub and property. We all like to get opportunities where we can value add. And we saw that with Spatial Hub. If I was using an analogy, and nothing against the guy, but and Nigel, it presented as an old Toyota farm ute. It's had the right mechanical and structural platforms, but it hadn't been remodeled to reflect today's market's requirements. And I see that as great because it hadn't been polished and presented. And drawing that analogy back to property, it's a great opportunity to value add. It's almost like, I almost see it like taking that old farm ute and turning it into today's Land Cruiser. We've invested ourselves. We've made 3 investments into the company over the space of now 18 months we've been involved. And we're very much participating in the property scope product. Property to us is all about being informed. And you need to be informed quickly so that you're not wasting time if that property doesn't meet your credentials and requirements. So when we originally started out with Spatial Hub, we thought that this product would be suited to the property development and the professional marketplace. But we've since recognised the depth of the market is far greater by making it more user-friendly and more accessible to, pardon the pun, the mums and dads of the world. Everyone loves property. It's a great Australian pastime. And people always want to be able to make informed decisions. And at the moment, to make that decision, you have to go to too many different platforms. You've got to go to council, you've got to go to the state government, you've got to go to so many different places. And that's where it takes time. And as Guy said, it could take 5, 10, even 20, 30 hours, depending on the level of assessment. So to be able to get that information quickly to people so that they can make a judgment call. And that judgment call could just be, yes, let's investigate this further, or yes, that property does suit my requirements. It was only the other day that I was confronted with exactly the situation. We've been tracking a property for 12 months. And I've made a fortuitous call to the owner, and the owner says, yes, I've just given it to an agent. That agent then gave us 1 day to submit our cash unconditional offers. Unless we had a similar platform to what we're talking about now, I wouldn't have been in a position to be able to make that judgment call. We're talking about $1 million acquisition, so we needed to be careful. And as a result, even better news, we were successful. And so I can vouch for the property scope product, and I believe that the mums and dads will greatly benefit from it. It needs to be super user-friendly. And I see our target market as more the younger market. They're the people that are digitally aware. And I look forward to progressing it. And hopefully some of you people will be able to join on the journey.
So I think just as a summary here, we started out with one revenue stream, which is from the traditional subscription farm map product. We've now introduced a light version of that, i.e. it's a much more dumbed down of the sophisticated original model. We're developing a premium product, which will be out very soon. We're looking to create a dashboard-based product. So a farmer out in the field with a tablet will be able to get quick information on yield, sustainability, so on and so forth of their property. the key thing about the revenues for us is all the core development cost and expense has actually happened. The platform is there, it's built, it's operating. For us, this is growth. This is about raising money to put people in who can get the sales, market, and market penetration going quickly. Through these specialist reports you can see above, we're looking to increase the revenues to 1.1 million in this financial year, and with a significant rise in the 24 months after it. All the management and the board of directors have significant experience in startup technologies, commercialization, and analytics, which is excellent. And we're very much focused on 80% reuse of the core. There is no shortage of opportunities for us, but if we can't pass the test of reusing the data already we have, we'll step aside and focus on the ones where we can reuse what we've got.
Thanks, Scott. So I just wanted to open up, so Mark Rainbird here, just wanted to open up to if anyone had any questions. I thought those insights from Peter were valuable. And obviously Peter's using the product in anger already, which is great to hear. So is there any questions from anybody that's on the call?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, hi, Richard.
Just looking at, can you tell me what sort of marketing are you actually doing? I mean, you've got the different areas, I understand, the property and the farms, but can you just break that down and some idea of what you're doing?
Nigel, can you cover farm app and I'll cover property?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, Richard. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Good, Nigel. You well?
I'm back in Sydney for a while. Have a chat.
Okay.
But yeah, look, in the marketing area, we've actually been doing, as you know, we've got a new manager on board. He came on board a few months ago now, called Mark. Mark's got an excellent background in marketing analytics and economics. He's been actively involved getting the marketing going for FarmMap. In fact, one of the reasons we launched Light was to create a market for it. And we've used a company in Adelaide called Hughes, which is a marketing and PR specialist. And in fact, they've been very active in getting the product out there. And that's one of the reasons why this last few months we've been generating a lot more sales of the FarmMap product. And in fact, I think Guy also can mention the fact that we're using Hughes with the release of the new product, and they've got an active plan going together. So we're pretty actively involved at this point in time. To be frank, we weren't that involved a year ago because we weren't in a position to do so, but we have been over the last 6 months. So Guy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think the difference, Richard, between the two products is the farm map is more big properties, although obviously it can be used by smaller properties. There's a lot more word of mouth. There's a lot more referrals within the community. And there's a lot of event and show type marketing works very, very well in that particular community. Property Scope is essentially a retail product. It's designed and priced to be mobile based, accessible for the unsophisticated information who can quickly buy a report, either a basic one at $20 or an advanced one at $50, or indeed a subscription if they wish to. We will be heavily using social media and forums and the like of similar digital channels in the first period. So in the beta period, which is through December through January, we have a social media plan in place, and that will be significantly expanded and put on steroids from January onwards.
That sounds good. And what about the direct marketing to city councils or applicable government areas, property companies, or I'm talking about the big ones?
You've hit on a tremendous growth opportunity, which I didn't mention because we're not developing it yet. But essentially, to let Property Scope work, we map all the data on councils' databases and we aggregate it into these simple reports. And there's a lot of magic which goes behind that. But as you may be aware, a lot of councils do not have digital databases for property information. It's all on PDFs, etc. And what we will be doing probably in the middle of next year is talking progressively to a number of councils about digitalizing their property data, which will allow us, well, would certainly make them more efficient and effective, but it would also much more quickly broaden and deepen what we can do.
Oh, that sounds very good. Certainly going forward on what you mentioned earlier as well. Unfortunately, I should have, and I didn't. What is the website? Is the website good?
There's a holding website at the moment, which you can go into, Spatial Hub Analytics, you'll find it. And that will take you through to the summary pages for both Farm Map and increasingly Property Scope. Property Scope at the moment has limited airtime. We're mentioning it, but it will have its own website, but you will also be able to come in through the headline website of Spatial Analytics. So yes, they will have very attractive websites. Clearly, the key thing about the Property Scope is it is mobile based. So essentially, it's like most apps, you'll be connected through to the website, but you won't know you're going through a website, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Richard, the website for the company is www.spatialhub4d.com. So we actually use the 4D in there as well. We don't use that word analytics. We just use spatialhub4d.com.
Right, thanks for that. Okay, the last question might be a bit thorny, but nevertheless, Nigel, I did comment before, and also having been involved in a couple of companies' software. And what always stands out, I mean, I've got my son developing a company, and I keep telling him, until you've got a scalable number of sales, or that looks interesting, nobody's even going to look at you. And to be frank, I mean, I accept that we're in the very early stages, and it certainly sounds exciting, to be frank, as to where this is all going. But when you're talking about $1 million, that's not money. So you did say that, okay, in the second part of the year, perhaps, it's going to ramp up a lot. Well, let's talk the next financial year. But I really believe that we have to somehow show, without running away with it, but showing, you know, that we're going to do a much larger turnover. I mean, I'm thinking of a particular guy that might be interested in putting in some money. He wouldn't even look at it at this stage. So,
yeah, I think, Richard, the turnover last year was around 200K, I think, as you know.
Yeah.
And that was our turnover just with Farm Map, and that was just the old product of Farm Map. And so far this year, we've actually increased sales by about 60% so far this year. When we release the light product, we're expecting the Farm Map product alone to double sales. So it will be around 400 this year, just with Farm Map. And then, of course, with the new property product going out around Christmas time, that will have 6 months in the marketplace. We're expecting great things for that to increase the sales base of the company. And that's why we're talking now about 1.1 million. And we've also done a projection for next year, which is actually quite conservative, based upon both Farm Map current product and the new property product, together with a new dashboard product, which we also intend to release. And I think we're now looking towards over 5 million next year. So we're on the cusp, if you like. And just to demonstrate some of the value, we're in conversation with just one of the 2 contracts with government to do with the Drought Hub. We're currently in dialogue with a very major owner of farms in Western Australia, who shall remain nameless, but I imagine you can guess who that person is. He's quite big in the mining sector, and he's very keen to get the product going. We've got a project going with him, and in fact, some of the things we're doing have never been done before in this market. So we've got some good things about to happen, and we're really quite excited by the fact that we do.
I think that's, you know, I genuinely believe it is very exciting. And the only point I'll sort of making is that right at this time, if one is looking to raise money, just the way I see it, is the things, Nigel, you've just discussed, I think would make a very big difference to potential investors.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's why we're having the call, so we can inform you around what progress the company's making. So, Guy, did you want to make some comments on that, or?
No, I think I think Richard, you've hit it on the head. This opportunity is being promoted as the early stage of a fast growth cycle. So as I've said, there's been a significant, a lot of startups, as you know, you invest in them. A lot of it goes into developing the technology, and there's a bit of a black hole. We've got over 4, possibly nearer 5 million of sunk development, which is in there, it's working. So the development we have to do is not building, it's enhancing.
And selling.
So we really are in the growth phase now, not the development phase. And all your points are absolutely valid. I think our colleagues in funding strategies quite rightly have asked us to talk to revenues we can be certain about, but there is no shortage of revenue opportunities for us. Our problem is having the arms and legs to get at them in the right order.
Yeah. So maybe just on that, do you want to maybe just outline who your current clients are and how many clients you have, just to support, I guess, the revenue discussion?
Nigel, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, well, the current, we got mostly corporate farms. We've actually been quite big on the corporate farming sector. So today we would have around, well, I think as of today, it's probably around about 350. I think last year we had a total of 298. Today we've got around 350. We expect that number to increase above 400, probably about 420 by this year. Most of them, in fact, as you say, as we discussed, were corporate. We currently cover most of the farms which are in the sort of 10,000 head of cattle plus area quite well. The product really has not been focused on the small end of the market, and the reason we brought out the light product was to actually ensure we were in a position where we can actually penetrate that lower end of the market and also provide a platform for growth from new products into new farming areas. So we can get into irrigated ag, and we can move into broad acre and other sectors of farming as well. The technology we have is applicable to all areas. The way we do our analysis, which is pixel based, as I mentioned earlier, and based on intelligent lines, we can apply in any sector. It's irrelevant really where we work, as long as we can pick up the algorithms, and we can work out what their algorithms are to develop our AI models. And a good example actually is we're talking to PIRSA, which is a group in South Australia. Potentially it's worth to us around $800,000 in license fees. And we're using the Farm Map basic product for doing that. And the thing they want to do is to use our system to analyze the quality of the soil, which we can do quite comfortably using our analytics coming from Sentinel Hub data. And we're using different spectral data. We can actually assess whether the soil is salty or not salty, whether it's covered with grass or not, dead vegetation. We can do all those things. And that's the thing they want to do. They can't do it currently in any other way. All right, so that gives you an idea of some of the things we're looking at. So it's all based around the fact that we can do this pixel-based analysis, which is raster-based, as we call it, which is quite clever.
So was there any other questions from the participants?
Yeah, Mark, I've got, it's a query for Victoria, but I think it applies everywhere. Can the information provided be relied on by lawyers during due diligence being conducted on behalf of clients looking at a potential house purchase, in brackets, instead of the approach they follow today?
The answer is we would run a disclaimer saying you should not make a commercial decision on our reports in isolation. And simply because the data we collect is only as good as and up to date as it is from, say, councils, etc. So if part of their database isn't up to date, or they're changing a town plan, etc., then clearly we could not be responsible for the data. But I think it's key to point, if I take a town planner, for example, or a lawyer, a client comes in and says, please give me a report on a property. They're probably going to spend somewhere between 5 to 6, possibly 7 hours pulling together the rudimentary data to allow them to give a legal and professional opinion. We have a town planner as part of us For a basic report, they estimate it's 6 hours of work in their office to give a basic opinion to a customer. With our product, the lawyer, the town planner, engineers, etc., will be able to get all that core data in the matter of minutes rather than the hours it takes them at the moment. So a lot of our, for the professional sector, a lot of our the value add is we significantly reduce the time it takes for them to do their own assessment in their offices. We will give them 85, possibly 90% of all the factual information they need very quickly. Clearly, for professional advice, they need to do that sort of significant layer on the top. When we don't claim to be lawyers, we don't claim to be town planners, you do need to seek professional advice to get a final opinion.
But having said that, Guy, I think the thing we should also point out is we're using exactly the same sources that a lawyer would use.
Correct.
So we are using the same sources, and I imagine the lawyer would have exactly the same disclaimers.
Yep, so there's that answer the question, Ken?
Yeah, Charles just said thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Mark, if you can hear me.
Yeah, hi Tim, how things?
Well, thank you. Look, I've got quite a few questions, some of it more technical, probably for Guy. So first of all, in terms of the agricultural use, do you cover all states and territories?
Nigel?
Yes, sorry, yes, in a word, yes, we do. Well, we can cover anywhere in the world, actually, which is what makes it even more exciting. But yes, we can.
Okay. In terms of the current subscribers, are they subscription based? Are they paying for a whole of subscription for multiple use, multiple properties? And what is a standard subscription under the package?
Yeah, well, it ranges actually. We got a number of versions of, if you like, of the standard package. The main package for a single property is around $1,200, but that's a year. We also, in fact, have licenses on multiple properties, and therefore we do offer a discount. So a group like, let's try and think, we've got some groups which are paying 25,000 a year for licenses because they've got a number of properties. We've got other groups which are small farmers which are only paying a few $100s a year because they're using one of the lower end products. We have today a light product we have which is only $120 per year, and that's a low end product. We have what we call a moderate product which comes in around 350, and then we have the big one which comes in at about 1,200. And the functionality of each one depends upon the level you need, but they all give basic mapping capability.
Okay, thank you. There was you mentioned carbon as one of the other areas looking to move into, and there was a slide that very quickly came and went. What's the focus around what solution would carbon represent?
Yeah, we're looking at carbon across the board. We've had a number of clients, particularly in fact with hedge funds out of the USA, looking at how to manage their properties, and they're looking at carbon. So it's really about carbon abatement and the carbon capture. We're looking at both of those, and we're looking at the new models coming in for carbon assessments as well. So we've got one partner in carbon, which we've been working with now for the past 6 months to a year, and we've also been working with CSIRO and another group basically out of Scotland, actually, of all places, looking at carbon modelling as well. So we've got a number of activities working in the carbon space.
Okay. What's the in terms of the imagery and to get down to the pixelation, what's the frequency of the flyovers, overlays, taking the pictures in effect?
Yeah, well, if we're using satellite, we use 2 satellite systems primarily. If we're using Landsat, it's quite a long way between samples. It can be quite a few months. We use Sentinel Hub most of the time, so we're using Sentinel data. We're normally getting 7 to 10 days as a passover. We can actually also use others. We can actually direct satellites above a property if required. And we also can arrange for a survey to be done by drone or by aircraft if required as well.
Okay. Now, to the financial metrics, you mentioned that the developer property product would look to roll out soon. You mentioned Queensland and then rolling into New South Wales, into Victoria. What's the time frame on the East Coast and then again to the broader Australian market?
So the time frame for the East Coast, we don't have firm dates for New South Wales and Victoria because clearly we want to see how the beta launch in Queensland goes. The planning exercise for going into both is a first half next year event, and we are already talking to people in those states who can give us advice and guidance. So if you take the data in the property product, 85 to 90% is going to be the same across all states because they come under Australian planning guidelines, etc. But it's the 10% variation we need to identify and nail down so that we give the best possible reports in those states. So it's less about developing completely new product. It's more about understanding what's different in terminology in New South Wales and Victoria, which therefore would affect the data extraction we undertake.
Okay. To the financial metrics, you indicated your revenue turnovers for this year, circa 1.1, and then all going well, escalating up to around 5 million. What's the break even when you look at the additional resources to come in for your marketing, for your distribution, for the other, you know, where's the tipping point to get to break even in terms of the current forward-looking costs?
Well, do we take that? Do you want to take that one, Guy?
Yeah, so the financial modeling, which takes the costs and obviously the projected revenues, the business enters into a positive cost income ratio within 12 months. Now, that's an important point because, as I've mentioned earlier, a large amount of the expense you would typically expect from a data has already been expended. So the cost of us taking new products to the market is actually very modest in comparison with having to build new. So we are revenue positive against costs in the property products within 6 to 7 months. And the whole business is in a positive cost income ratio 12 months out. And that includes forecasting costs for the extra headcount, the arms and legs sales, all those sort of things we want to put in to turbocharge the sales performance. So it's a very cash generative business.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're getting the R&D back as well.
Correct.
Yep.
And so it leads to the next question. In terms of the ultimate strategy as you develop the business up, increase the revenues, is there are currently large data providers out there like the domains, the CoreLogics, the REAs, etc. Is this potentially to build up for an on sale? Is it to build up to an IPO? What's the exit strategy and or, you know, longer term strategy of the board?
Well, I think all the above, to be frank. Yeah, we already have a relationship with CoreLogic, as you may expect. We have relationships with a major survey company as well. We have relationships with quite a few organizations. The intent is to suck it and see for a while. We believe that we certainly will be looking towards a trade sale within the next 4 years, but it could well be an IPO if it goes particularly well. So an IPO is definitely on the cards.
What I would say as well, for the property products, one of the things we're exploring is entering into a third-party distributor relationship with one of the big names you've mentioned. What we can do on a mobile phone, we're not aware any of them can do. They can do parts of it, but not the whole. And we would see as a very simple to use retail product, we're going to be highly attractive as an add-on to their platforms with them taking a clip through. That is one of the ways we're going to look at fast growing the revenues. None of those are in active discussion at the moment, but we are scoping out what the shape of a deal or a transaction might look like.
And then last question, you've got quite a few similar businesses emerging in terms of the whole GIS, spatial mapping. You know, if you start to overlay ESG, natural capital, let alone the commercial development solutions. So what differentiates Spatial Hub from the rest of the market? Because from my perspective, there's a race running, there are quite a few horses in it. Why back this horse versus some of the other horses in that same race?
Yeah, I think one of the key things in our view would be the fact that we're not siloed based. And one of the issues we've been finding is that most of the products in the marketplace are actually heavily siloed. And therefore, once you actually operate within that silo, it's very hard to transfer data to another one. And one of the reasons we're talking to a number of potential competitors in the marketplace is to actually bring them into our system. So we're providing a platform, if you like, more and a framework, and we're actually building upon that. So that it does allow for cross-fertilization of data and data points. None of the other products do. So today, well, in fact, as a good example, we know that our product's been used to form the basis of some agri-web applications where they used our product initially to get the data into the right format, and the agri-web then uses it within their programs to do what they do, to move it out to migrate to another product such as Maya. They've got to then take the data out and then rehash it, rebuild it, and put it back in again. They can put it back through our system, and it automatically will spin into Maya as well. So we've got the ability to actually cross-fertilize between all those different elements. And I think that's something which is it's been one of our strengths, and it's been one of the reasons we've actually created from the bottom up and created the platform around this 4D model.
Okay. In the zoning data, it's always one of the challenges. And in terms of overlays, what overlays will you be able to pull through? And if you go forward in the agricultural sense as well, are you also thinking about other environmental overlays in terms of frost, fire risk, and those aspects, and how they may integrate into the platform?
Well, the short answer is absolutely. And everything we do is about overlays, and we're totally layer based. So everything we do is about layers. So everything, in fact, has the ability to overlay with something else. And at a pixel by pixel level, we can then do the integration at the pixel level as well to do some analysis. And that's one of the other strengths. So we are looking at all those different areas. I think Guy can talk a bit more about the property, but within the property market, we're using many of the same layers we would use in agriculture as well, such as flood, such as salt, humidity levels, weather data, climatic data. All that is common to everything. Information about bushfire analysis, all those things are common as well. So the whole gambit.
Yeah, and in the future iterations, and it's definitely on our sort of whiteboard, but we haven't done detailed planning on. As Nigel was saying, firstly, if you look on the outskirts of all the big cities and under the city town plans, there are small farms, and they are actually coming under the same sort of property dynamics as a residential property. But also in big cities, increasingly, you've got landscapers, vegetation, etc., all who need to know moisture, soil, all the other sort of stuff we already collect for the rural product we offer. So this is, again, the high reuse of data. We don't see farms as being entirely separate from property. In fact, one feeds the other quite significantly.
Pardon the pun.
Sorry, but I missed that one, yes.
Yeah, pardon the pun.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So I'm just cognizant of time, so happy to take any more queries if anyone wants to ask the team anything further. So maybe we'll just close out with maybe some final comments. So Guy or Nigel, did you want to sort of close off in terms of some final comments in terms of the discussion?
Oh, look, I think the comment we say, which is things, we are looking for people to invest in growth, not development. The development's happened. Money we raise entirely goes into growth and doing enhancements of the product so they can be used in other sectors. So this is very much a growth play rather than a development startup.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. I think that's a good way to end it, actually. I think we're talking about growth. It's not about development here because we've done all that.
Okay. No, that's great, guys. So I'd like to thank everyone for being on the webinar today. And what we'll do is we'll come back around from a funding strategies point of view and just make sure everyone's got the appropriate information. And if there's any other queries, from Charles or Tim or Richard or Sylvia, etc., get in contact, and we look forward to you joining on the next call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.